There is a voice inside your head. It has been talking to you all day, before the alarm, in the shower, on the drive, in the silence between the things you have to do and the man you are trying to be. And you have never once stopped to ask if that voice is telling you the truth. Most men do not even hear it anymore. It has been running so long it sounds like facts. You fail at something and the voice says, "Of course you did." You try something new and it says, "Who do you think you are?" You look at your life and it says, "You should be further along by now." And you nod. Because it sounds like honesty, because it has been there your whole life. But here is the thing no one tells you. That voice is not your instinct. It is not wisdom. It is a habit, a pattern, a recording that started playing before you were old enough to choose it. And like any habit, it has been building your life whether you gave it permission or not. You wake up tired, not from sleep, from carrying that voice all day. The list of everything you have not done, the comparisons, the replays, the quiet shame of feeling behind in a race you cannot even name. That is the cost of a mind you have never been taught to train. And here is what I need you to understand right now. Everything in your life is downstream of the way you speak to yourself. Not your past, not the people around you, not your circumstances. The language running inside your head is either building you or breaking you, quietly, daily, without anyone seeing it happen. What you are about to hear is not about being positive. It is not about repeating empty words in the mirror. This is something far older and far more powerful. The Stoics understood 2,000 years ago that the inner voice is the command center of a man's entire life. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, trained his every single morning, not because he was weak, because he understood that even the strongest mind drifts without daily command. So that is what we are doing today, 8 lessons, and every one of them is built for the man who is done being run by a voice he never chose. The first lesson is about awareness. And here is why most men skip it. The voice is so constant, so familiar, that you have accepted everything it says without a single question. You hear, "I am not good enough," and it feels like a fact. You hear, "Nothing ever goes my way," and you file it away like a weather report. You have been on autopilot for years, and the autopilot has been flying the wrong direction. Here is the hidden cause. The brain is wired to treat repeated thoughts as truth, not because they are true, because they are familiar. Familiarity and truth feel exactly the same from the inside. That is why the longest lies you have ever believed came from your own head. Marcus Aurelius called this the first discipline. Not willpower, not strength, perception, the ability to see a thought before it becomes your reality. You are in a meeting, and your boss pushes back on your idea. Before he has finished talking, your inner voice has already decided, "I am an idiot, I should have stayed quiet." You then spend the next 3 hours living inside that one sentence. Not in your life, in a sentence. And you never once asked if it was true. The action is one thing. Today, when a dark thought lands, do not fight it and do not follow it. Just pause and ask, is this a fact or is this just a feeling? That question is the first act of command. When you do that, you stop being a man who is owned by his thoughts. You become the man who watches his thoughts and decides which ones deserve to move. The second lesson is emotional control, and here is something that will bother you if you let it land. The worst things ever said to you were not said by your enemies. They were said by you, in your own head, in the dark, when nobody was watching. You replay the argument from 3 days ago. You lie awake building the case against yourself. You take every mistake and hold it up to the light until it is all you can see. The truth is brutal. You have been your own harshest judge for so long, the verdict feels permanent. Here is the psychology. The brain confuses repetition with reality. Every time you replay a painful memory or a failure, you do not just remember it. You reinforce it. You make it louder. The event already happened. What is damaging you now is the story you keep choosing to run on a loop. Epictetus knew this, a man born into slavery who became one of the most powerful thinkers in history. He said, "Men are not disturbed by events, but by the opinions they hold about events." Picture a man at midnight, a mistake from 3 weeks ago, still playing in his mind, his wife asleep beside him, his body exhausted. But his mind will not stop. That is not the mistake haunting him. That is the story he chose to keep. When the old story starts, say these words out loud. Say them like you mean them. That was then. This is now. I choose the next thought. Say it until the loop breaks. When you stop feeding the old story, you stop being a man trapped in his past. You become the man who decides what stays and what goes. The third lesson is discipline in your language, and here is a belief most men hold that is quietly destroying them. They think the way they talk to themselves is just venting, just blowing off steam. That it does not really count. It counts. Every word counts. Vague, dramatic language activates the part of your brain built for emergencies. Every time you say, "Everything is falling apart," your nervous system treats it like a threat. Your body goes into defense mode. Your thinking narrows. You do not build a life in defense mode. You only survive. Seneca wrote that the first step to greatness is to decide to be great. That decision starts in language, precise language, the language of a man who knows exactly what he is dealing with and is choosing what to do next. You are stuck in traffic. The old voice says, "Nothing ever works out for me." The trained voice says, "I am 10 minutes late. I will send a message and handle it." Same moment, different voice, completely different man. Pick one complaint you repeat daily. Replace it today with one clear, precise sentence. Not a positive one, a useful one. When you speak with precision instead of panic, you stop being a man controlled by his own noise. You become the man who uses language like a tool, not a weapon against himself. The fourth lesson is about boundaries, and here is the belief that has cost more men more time than almost anything else. That confidence comes before action. That you need to feel ready before you move. It does not. You are not built that way. Nobody is. The mind seeks certainty before it commits. It wants guarantees. It wants to know the risk is low before it steps. But life does not give guarantees. So the untrained mind waits. One more thing needs to be in place. One more preparation. And the years pass while you stand at the edge asking for permission from yourself. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. He had every reason to delay, to delegate, to wait for better conditions. But he wrote to himself each morning, simply, "You have work to do. Get up." Not when you feel like it, not when you are ready. Get up, full stop. You have something you have been waiting to start. You know what it is. Do not ask your mind if you are ready. Tell it you are moving. Do that one thing today, before you think about it long enough to stop yourself. When you stop waiting for your own permission, you stop being the man who watches his life from a distance. You become the man whose actions do not need the approval of his own fear. The fifth lesson is self-respect. Ask yourself honestly, would you say what your inner voice says to a man you respect? Would you look a good friend in the eye after a hard day and tell him he is useless, that he always gets it wrong, that he should be ashamed? No, you would not. But you say it to yourself, every single day, without blinking. This is not honesty. This is a habit. Self-criticism wears the mask of discipline. It tells you it is keeping you sharp. What it is actually doing is eroding the foundation beneath everything you are trying to build. The Stoics called the inner voice the hegemonikon, the ruling part, the command center of a man's entire life. If the ruler speaks to you with contempt, your life reflects that contempt, not as punishment, as result. A man makes a costly mistake at work. The untrained voice runs for 3 days. You are a failure. You always get this wrong. The trained voice says, I made a mistake. I understand why. I do this differently now. Move. One of those men grows, the other one shrinks. Next time you catch your voice insulting you, stop. Then say what a mentor who believed in you would actually say. Not softer, just true. When your inner voice speaks to you with respect, you stop being a man who undermines himself. You become the man who leads himself with the same strength he would give to someone worth leading. The 6th lesson is mental toughness, and here is a question most men never think to ask. If a crisis hit today, right now, what would your inner voice say in the first 30 seconds? Because whatever it says in that window is what you become in the moment that matters most. Untrained minds borrow from fear when pressure rises. The voice goes to worst case, to panic, to I cannot handle this, not because it is true, because the voice was never trained to say anything else. And a man in panic does not make clear decisions. He reacts. He shrinks. He lets the moment own him. The Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of hardships. They imagined the hard thing before it arrived, not to fear it, to prepare the voice, to decide in advance what the steady man inside them would say when it came. So when it came, the voice was already ready. A man gets the call that his job is gone. The untrained man spirals, but the man who has prepared his voice says quietly, I knew something like this could come. I have thought about this. Here is what I do next. Same event, different voice. Completely different outcome. Every morning, name one hard thing that could happen today. Then speak your response out loud before it happens. Build the sentence that will not break before you need it. When you train your voice for difficulty, you stop being a man surprised by hardship. You become the man whose first response to pressure is not panic, it is command. The 7th lesson is purpose, and here is what drifting actually feels like. You work hard, you get through the days, you do the things you are supposed to do, but at the end of them you feel hollow, not tired from effort, empty from direction, like a man rowing hard with no idea where he is going. When a man has no clear identity to speak toward, the inner voice fills that gap with doubt. Is this even working? What is this all for? Maybe I am wasting my time. Not because it is true, because without direction, the mind has nothing else to offer. Marcus Aurelius called this logos, living in line with your nature and your reason, not someone else's version of success, yours. He wrote to himself not to record his days, but to remind himself of the man he was deliberately building. Every morning, the same man, pointing himself at the same direction. A man finishes a long week. He sits in the car before he goes inside. He is drained, not because he did not work, because he has not named what the work is building. He has no sentence to say to himself, so the inner voice fills the silence with questions he cannot answer. Write one sentence today. Who are you becoming? Make it simple. Make it yours. Read it every morning before anything else touches you. When your voice knows where you are going, you stop being a man who drifts. You become the man whose daily effort has a name, and that name belongs to him. The 8th lesson is transformation, and here is the hard truth. You have felt something like this before. You heard something that moved you, and by the next morning you were the same man. That is not failure. That is how the untrained mind works. One moment of clarity does not rewire anything. Only daily repetition changes the voice. Only daily command builds the walls of a man's character. Marcus Aurelius was the ruler of the Roman Empire. He sat down every single morning and wrote to himself, not because he forgot what he knew, because he understood that the mind drifts. It always drifts back toward fear, toward complaint, toward smallness, unless something pulls it back. And that pull has to be you. Every morning, before the phone, before the noise, before the world tells you who to be today, 5 minutes. 3 sentences, out loud, like a man who means it. I choose what I carry today. I am not controlled by what I cannot change. I am becoming the man I am building, not because they are magic, because they are precise, because they are yours. Because you say them every day until they become the floor of your life that nothing can shake. Here is what changes, not overnight. One morning at a time, the voice in your head starts to sound different, steadier, clearer, more like the man you recognize. And the life around you starts to reflect it. Not because luck changed, because you stopped giving chaos permission to speak for you. You stop being the man who was owned by his thoughts. You become the man whose peace cannot be stolen, because you built it yourself, with your own words, in the quiet, long before anyone else could see it. That is the man you are becoming. Now speak like him. Drop discipline in the comments if you are committing to this every morning. And if this reached the right man today, share it with one more.